You save a photo to iCloud. You upload a document to Google Drive. You stream a playlist on Spotify. And everyone calls it the cloud, like your data is floating around in some magical digital sky. But here's what nobody tells you. The cloud is just a fancy name for computers sitting in massive warehouses that you'll never see. Yeah, I know. It sounds way less impressive when you put it that way, but that's exactly what's happening. Every photo you've ever backed up, every email you've ever sent, every Netflix show you've ever watched, it's all stored on actual hard drives in actual buildings owned by actual companies. The cloud isn't ethereal. It's metal and silicon and spinning disks taking up physical space. In the next 15 minutes, you're gonna understand how your phone talks to these computers and why that conversation is way more complicated and interesting than anyone tells you. And once you see what's really happening when you hit upload, you'll never think about the cloud the same way again. So here's what's really happening when you take a photo and save it to the cloud. Think about it this way. You're standing in a Starbucks. You snap a picture of your latte art, because of course you do. You hit the button to back it up, and then what? Everyone assumes the photo just magically dematerializes into thin air. But that's not what actually happens. Your phone takes that photo, breaks it into tiny chunks of data, figures out the fastest route to Apple's computers, sends those chunks through the air to a cell tower or Wi-Fi router, which forwards them through cables to Apple's data center, where they get reassembled and stored on a hard drive, all in a few seconds. Picture this scenario. You're scrolling through your photos from 3 years ago, looking at that vacation you took to Hawaii. Those photos aren't on your phone. They got deleted from your device months ago to save space. So where are they? They're sitting on hard drives in Apple's data centers, maybe in North Carolina, maybe in Oregon, maybe in Denmark. And when you scroll to that photo, your phone sends a request to those computers saying, hey, can I see photo number 847293? Those computers find it, send it back to your phone, and boom, there's your beach sunset. The whole thing feels instant. But it's actually this insanely complex dance between your device and computers that might be thousands of miles away. Everyone tells you the cloud is simple and automatic, just turn it on and forget about it. But what they don't tell you is you're constantly relying on this connection working perfectly. And when it doesn't, you feel it immediately. Your photos won't load, your documents won't sync, your music stops playing. The illusion of the cloud being magical only holds up as long as every single step of that process works flawlessly. And this matters because you've given up control without realizing it. Think about your parents' generation. They took photos with cameras. Those photos existed on film or memory cards or their computer's hard drive. They could hold them, they could control them. Your entire photo library lives on Apple's computers. Your entire music collection lives on Spotify's servers. Your documents live on Google's machines. And you're trusting that these companies will keep that connection working, keep your data safe, and not lose everything if something goes wrong. There's this pattern I call the handshake problem, and it's happening every single time your phone talks to the cloud. When you try to upload something, your phone doesn't just blast data into the void and hope it arrives. It has to establish a connection through multiple layers of communication. It's like trying to have a conversation at a loud party. You can't just start talking. You have to get the person's attention, confirm they can hear you, agree on a language, and then exchange information while constantly checking that they're still listening. Your phone does the same thing with cloud servers. It sends out a signal saying, hey, I want to connect. The server responds, okay, I'm listening. Your phone says, here's who I am and here's my password. The server checks and says, yep, you're legit. Then your phone says, I want to send you this file. The server says, cool, I'm ready to receive. And only then does the actual data start moving. Each one of these steps takes time. Each one can fail. And if any step breaks, the whole thing stops working. This matters because people think uploading to the cloud should be instant. But there's all this negotiation happening behind the scenes that you never see. When your backup is taking forever, it's not necessarily because your internet is slow. It might be because your phone and the server are having trouble agreeing on how to communicate. Or because the server is busy talking to a million other devices. Or because somewhere in the chain, a connection got interrupted and they have to start the handshake over. Think about trying to upload a video to Instagram. You hit upload, watch the progress bar crawl forward, and then suddenly it fails at 95%. You're like, seriously? You couldn't finish the last 5%? But what happened is the handshake broke. Maybe your Wi-Fi hiccuped, maybe Instagram's server got overloaded, maybe your phone's cellular signal switched towers mid-upload. Whatever the reason, the connection died, and now your phone has to start the entire negotiation process over from scratch. And that's why uploading that same video might work perfectly on the second try, not because your internet got better, but because the handshake succeeded this time. Your brain doesn't naturally see all these steps because they happen so fast. When things work, you never think about them. It's like breathing. You don't notice it until something goes wrong. Back when we actually copied files onto USB drives, the process was obvious. You could see the file moving, watch the progress bar, physically remove the drive when it finished. But now everything happens invisibly through wireless signals, so we forget there's still a complex process making it work. But here's where it gets interesting. The cloud isn't just one computer sitting somewhere. It's thousands or millions of computers working together. And your phone has to figure out which computer to talk to. There's this thing I call the router maze. When your phone sends data to the cloud, that data doesn't travel in a straight line. It bounces through dozens of computers on its way to the destination. Think of it like sending a letter, except instead of going directly from your mailbox to the recipient, your letter gets passed through 30 different post offices, and each post office decides which direction to send it next based on current traffic conditions. That's basically how the internet works. Your phone sends data to your Wi-Fi router, the router sends it to your internet provider provider sends it to a bigger network. That network passes it to another network, and on until it eventually reaches the right data center. Then the response has to travel all the way back through a similar maze. This matters because each hop adds a tiny delay, and each hop is a potential point of failure. Usually, everything works fine because the internet is designed to route around problems automatically. But sometimes, somewhere in that maze, something breaks. A router goes down, a cable gets damaged, a network gets overloaded, and suddenly your phone can't reach the cloud, even though your Wi-Fi says it's connected. You're screaming, "My internet is working fine!" And technically, you're right. Your connection to the internet is fine. But somewhere in that maze between you and Apple's servers, something isn't working. And there's no easy way to tell where the problem is. Think about Michael. Michael's trying to download an important presentation from Google Drive before a meeting. His Wi-Fi is showing full bars. His internet speed test looks great, but Google Drive won't load. He's getting frustrated, thinking Google is broken. What Michael doesn't realize is the route from his phone to Google's servers passes through a network hub in Chicago that's currently having issues. His phone is successfully reaching the internet. His data is successfully bouncing through the first 10 routers. But somewhere around router 11, things are backing up. And his phone has no way to tell him that. All he sees is can't connect to Google Drive. The problem isn't on his end or Google's end. It's in the invisible maze between them. Now, this next pattern is particularly sneaky because it affects how fast everything feels. I call it the bandwidth bottleneck. When you hear cloud, you probably think speed doesn't matter because it's all automatic. But the speed of your connection determines everything about your cloud experience. And here's the tricky part. Your connection speed isn't just about what you're paying for. Think of bandwidth like a highway. Your internet plan determines how many lanes you have, but the speed you actually experience depends on how many cars are on your highway at the same time. You might have a 4-lane highway to yourself at 3 in the morning, boom, everything's fast. But at 7 p.m. when everyone in your house is streaming Netflix, gaming, and video calling, now that 4-lane highway has 8 cars trying to use it simultaneously. Suddenly everything slows down, even though your internet speed hasn't technically changed. This matters because people upgrade their internet thinking it'll fix cloud problems. And sometimes it helps. But if you've got 5 people sharing that connection, you're all fighting over the same bandwidth. Your phone trying to back up photos is competing with your sister's Netflix binge, your dad's Zoom call, and your mom's podcast. The cloud doesn't get priority unless you specifically set it up that way. And most people don't even know that's an option. And here's what makes this even more surprising. The bottleneck might not even be on your end. It might be on the cloud's end. When everyone tries to access the same cloud service at the same time, the servers get overwhelmed. Think about what happens when Apple releases a new iPhone and everyone tries to download the new iOS at once. Apple's servers can barely keep up. Same internet connection, same phone, but suddenly downloads are crawling because millions of people are hitting the same servers simultaneously. The bottleneck shifted from your house to Apple's data center. This connects to something even deeper about how the cloud actually works. There's this massive disconnect between the promise and the reality. The promise is seamless access to your stuff from anywhere. The reality is you're dependent on a connection, staying stable, enough bandwidth being available, the servers not being overloaded, and the route between you and them working properly. Any one of those fails, and suddenly the cloud disappears. But here's what nobody wants to admit. Here's the uncomfortable truth that changes everything. The reason companies push the cloud so hard isn't because it's better for you. It's because it's better for them. When your data lives on your device, you control it. You own it. You can access it without asking permission. But when your data lives on their servers, now they control it. They decide when you can access it. They can charge you subscription fees. They can mine your data for insights. They can delete features or change terms anytime they want. What's actually happening is you've been convinced to trade ownership for convenience. And for most people, that trade feels worth it because the convenience is real, but it comes with hidden costs. You can't access your photos without internet. You can't edit your documents if Google's servers are down. You can't listen to your music if Spotify decides your account is flagged. The illusion of the cloud being yours only exists as long as the company lets you access it. This isn't about companies being evil. They're providing a real service that most people genuinely want. But it's about understanding that you've given up control in exchange for convenience. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. Every time you save something to the cloud, you're trusting a company to keep it safe, keep it accessible, and not lose it. Most of the time, that trust is well placed, but not always. This is why tech-savvy people still keep local backups of important stuff. They're not paranoid, they just understand that the cloud is someone else's computer. And someone else's computer can fail, get hacked, or simply stop serving you. Having a copy on a hard drive you control means you're not completely dependent on that connection working. Let me tell you about Jessica. Jessica is a photographer. She shoots weddings, and like everyone else, she started backing everything up to the cloud. It was easy, automatic. She didn't have to think about it. Then one day, her iCloud account got locked because Apple's algorithm flagged something suspicious. Turns out it was a false positive. But while her account was locked, she couldn't access any of her recent work. She had weddings to deliver, clients waiting, and all her photos were trapped in the cloud. She spent 3 days trying to get through to Apple support, watching deadlines pass, feeling completely helpless. The cloud wasn't magical anymore. It was a locked vault she couldn't open. Now compare that to David. David's also a photographer, but David understood the handshake problem, the router maze, and the bandwidth bottleneck. So David uses the cloud for convenience, but he also keeps a local backup on hard drives in his studio. When his cloud account randomly had syncing issues one day, he barely noticed. He just grabbed the files from his local drive and kept working. Yeah, it takes him an extra step to maintain those backups, but he never has to worry about being completely locked out of his own work. Notice how that works? Jessica trusted the system completely. David trusted but verified. It's not that David has better technology. He just understands what the cloud actually is, someone else's computers, and plans accordingly. So what's really going on here? It's not actually about the cloud being good or bad. It's about understanding what you're giving up and what you're getting. The people who have the best experience with cloud services aren't the ones who trust it blindly. They're the ones who understand it's a connection between their device and someone else's computer. And that connection can break in dozens of ways they can't control. They use the cloud for its convenience while keeping important stuff backed up locally. They understand that automatic doesn't mean guaranteed. These patterns aren't personal failures or bad technology, they're fundamental realities of how cloud services work. But now that you understand the handshake problem, the router maze, and the bandwidth bottleneck, you can see what's actually happening when that sync fails or that upload stalls. It's not magic failing, it's a complex technical process hitting one of many possible obstacles. So here's what we've uncovered. The cloud is just computers in data centers. Your phone talks to them through a complex process of handshakes and routing through networks. The connection depends on bandwidth, stable routes, and servers that aren't overloaded. And you've traded ownership for convenience in ways most people never think about. When it works, it feels magical. When it doesn't, you remember it's actually just technology with all the limitations technology has. The question isn't whether you should use the cloud. Most people should, it's genuinely useful. The question is whether you understand what you're actually doing when you upload your life to someone else's computers. Because now you know it's not magic, it's infrastructure. It's handshakes and routers and bandwidth and companies deciding whether you get access. You can't unknow it. So next time your photos won't sync or your documents won't load, ask yourself, is the problem on my end, on their end, or somewhere in the maze between us? Because once you see the cloud for what it really is, everything looks different. That spinning upload icon isn't just annoying. It's your phone trying to complete a complex handshake with a computer you'll never see, through a route you can't control, hoping every single step works perfectly. And most of the time, somehow, it actually does.